Hi everyone, today we're going to be creating some art using stencils that we've made ourselves. So the materials you're going to need are a scratch piece of paper, 2 5x6 inch pieces of poster board paper, a pencil, a pair of scissors, a 7 inch by 18 inch piece of paper, and some paint markers. So I'm going to start this project off by doing a little bit of research. So since we're focusing on positive and negative space, I decided to think of something I'd like to draw and look up the word silhouette after. I wanted to draw an elephant, so I looked up elephant silhouette, and Google had tons of inspiration that I could look at. And then once I was inspired, I went ahead and got to sketching an idea that I had. Go ahead and draw, erase, redraw as much as you need to, but once you finally have a design that you're happy with, we're going to go ahead and cut that design out. Once you have your design all neatly cut out, you're going to go ahead and you're going to trace it onto both of your pieces of 5x6 inch poster board paper. Remember, you have 2 pieces and you're going to want to trace the same design onto both pieces just like this. You should have 2 identical looking pieces of paper. So now we're going to do some more cutting, and I'm going to be focused on keeping the positive space. Here I'm pointing to the positive space, and I plan to cut the negative space, which is this space right here. Remember, the positive space is the space of interest or focus, and the negative space is all the space around it. So right now I am focusing on cutting out all of the negative space from this poster board paper. Now that I'm done cutting out all the negative space, I am left with this positive space stencil. So now that I made my positive space stencil, I'm going to be making my negative space stencil now. So now I'm going to focus on keeping the negative space here, and I'm going to be cutting out the positive space. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that here because it's a little bit tricky. You might have to ask me or Mr. Holiday for help. What you're going to want to do is put a hole in the middle, and once you have that hole in the middle, you're going to go ahead and start cutting out the positive space. That is all the space of interest and focus. We're going to be getting rid of that, and we're going to be keeping the negative space. So here I am cutting out all the positive space. Remember, you don't want to cut through the negative space or anything. That's why we created the hole in the middle. Once again, if you need help, ask me or Mr. Holiday. This would be much easier if we use X-Acto knives, but we don't have enough for everybody, so we're going to be using scissors. Alright, so now we have both of our stencils, our positive space stencil and our negative space stencil. Now that we have both of our stencils ready to use, we're going to be starting the final project. So here we have our 7 by 18 inch piece of paper, and I'm going to start off by, I want to use my positive space stencil first. You don't have to do this, but I just decided this was the first stencil that I wanted to use personally, and I'm just going to set it on my paper. I'm going to put it in an orientation that I think looks good, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking one of these bottles of dot paint. I chose the color teal. You guys are welcome to choose any color that you like, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be dotting around the elephant on top of the stencil. So all the area that the stencil is covering, the paint is not going to touch. That's the whole point of a stencil, is that the paint is going to go around the stencil. All the area that's covered is not going to get affected. Make sure you're holding down the edges so that the paint doesn't accidentally get underneath. That gets a little bit tricky at times. And here I am going ahead and adding dots all around the elephant. Add as much as you'd like, and then we're going to pull off the stencil, and look how beautiful that is. We have a little elephant frolicking now. Okay, so now I am taking the stencil where I had removed all the positive space, and I'm putting it down. I flipped the stencil over because I wanted the elephants to face each other. I felt like it would help give it a little bit of movement. And now I am taking my paint marker, and I'm going to go ahead and start filling in all that space. Make sure once again that you are holding down the edges tightly so that no paint gets underneath the stencil. It will look much cleaner if you hold down the edges. If you need help, go ahead and ask me and Mr. Holiday, or ask somebody sitting next to you. Okay, so now that we're about done filling up all that space, I'm going to remove my stencil, and here we go. Now we have a positive space elephant. Alright, so now I'm going to be taking that stencil that I used before, you can kind of see that there's still some paint on it, and that's perfectly fine. It's not going to affect anything. I am going to take that stencil again where I'd cut out the negative space, and I'm going to use a new color this time because I wanted to mix it up a little bit. I am taking yellow. Here I'm making sure that the paint's dry so that they don't get onto one another. I'm shaking up the yellow, and here I go. I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the first elephant. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove the stencil now that I've finished the dots, and look, I have 3 beautiful elephant designs that I created using my stencils. And I'm going to go back in and add some more color because I felt like it looked a little bit plain. I felt like it could have been more creative. You guys don't have to use the same colors as I do. You don't have to do the same design that I do. Get creative, do whatever you'd like, make it beautiful. And right at the end here, I decided to add some pink paint to the purple elephant as well. And now here we have it, a piece of art created using stencils that we made. And those stencils really helped us create that repetition and movement all throughout the piece. I can't wait to see how you guys do. And let's get started.